especially in the context of managing the challenges in life, right? Especially our emotional health and mindfulness. Paradoxes may offer each of us a key to greater understanding because they often reflect the duality and complexity of the human experience. These paradoxes often have the capacity to point to a deeper truth upon closer reflection. And often that deeper truth shows up when we are not able to accept it. Life's challenges are often best managed not by forceful action, but by acceptance, slowing down and opening up to the present moment. The paradox may reflect the understanding that life's solutions aren't always linear. My name is Michael Scicchitano, and this is Right Here, Right Now, a podcast to inspire the learner inside each of us. In a world that is full of so much information, we will help find and package that information so that you can use it in your lives every day in practical ways. And in each episode, we will remind you of the importance of being present and mindful of your daily thoughts, actions, and interactions. It is truly the most vital step to learning and growth, being mindful and present right here, right now, to take on life's challenges and turn them into life's lessons. So come on this venture with us, a new beginning, a new journey that starts right here, right now. Welcome back, people. I am Michael Scicchitano, your host of Right Here, Right Now, the podcast that loves to look at all of our insights and lessons from various angles and novel perspectives to get the most out of the teachings that we have experienced. The podcast that aims to turn the world around when it comes to a potentially better way of looking at our world. The podcast that urges all of our beautiful listeners to be mindfully aware of how we often rely on routine and patterned ways of managing the challenges we face, and that we can be open to innovative ways of managing the strife in our life and the pain in our world. Today, people, we will examine some of the seemingly once obvious ways we have experienced our world, perhaps continue to experience our world, and wonder if these ways continue to serve us. Today, we will unlock some secrets and explore something that has fascinated me every time I encounter and discover them. Today, we will get mindfully present and audaciously aware of the paradoxical nature of some of the ways we can navigate our world. The paradox, things that are contrary to what we expect or seemingly beyond belief. Paradoxes just don't seem to make sense at first, right? A paradox presents an idea that seems self-contradictory or impossible at first, but often reveals a deeper truth upon closer reflection. This is the key here, people, to understanding what the paradox does and how they show up in our lives. Again and again. They seem self-contradictory at first, but reveal a deeper truth upon closer reflection. So I'm excited here today about this episode and with some varied perspective and understanding of how we can turn some insights inside out and once seemingly uplifting techniques upside down. We can understand that there lies some extremely helpful and sage advice on how we can better manage the tumult and challenges we all will face. Today, we will examine some of the straightforward ways we have been managing the challenges in our life and then take a closer look at the counterintuitive way that may serve us at this exact moment in time. And maybe you're currently dealing with something that seems unbearable and insurmountable and downright painful. And so today, right here, right now, my beautiful listeners, we are extending our love and grace to anyone that is struggling, right? We are reminded that showing up is important when we need to show up for someone else in our life that may be hurting so badly. And I would like to urge you to be ever more mindful and aware of how important it is that we implore and teach and advise those closest to us, including ourselves, that the most important thing that we can do when we need it most is that we can ask for help. And it's our jobs to make sure that others feel safe when asking for help. And it is our jobs to make others feel comfortable when doing something extremely vulnerable in asking for help. Asking for help is not easy for many of us. And especially when we need it most, it seems like we repel the fact that we need help. Today, people, we will get curious and wonder if the secret to life's secrets lies in many of the paradoxes and the counterintuitive insights that we instinctively run away from in so many moments of our lives. Let's get present and mindful with each of them and learn maybe how we can reverse engineer them, or at least look at them from a different perspective here and see how the concepts may fit into our lives, or at least our current situation. And of course, we'll throw in some wise words from various philosophical and scientific perspectives to help us understand that there is potentially a better way that we can better look at our world to better manage our lives. And we'll call them more mindful insights as we go. And just know that they're not easy to accept and embrace and even see at times. Just keep your head up and your mind and heart open. And let's get into a state of stillness and deliberately slow ourselves down right here, right now, so we can better absorb the lessons and the insights. And perhaps before we begin to explore some of the specific examples of the paradoxical nature of our lives, we can think about the paradox and maybe more formally describe its nature. And I actually found it somewhat challenging to put this episode together, as the concepts that we often employ are counteracting the forces that the paradox seems to want to enact upon us. And it was difficult to outline how I would describe them for each and every one of you. But I think it came out good. I think the insights will be beneficial to each and every one of you. And one of the interpretations here that seems to help in understanding the paradox is that they are seemingly absurd or self-contradictory propositions that, when investigated, may prove to be well-founded or true. I love this, the notion of investigating what is working and why. And it was sort of fun and interesting to look at synonyms for the paradox, words like contradiction, inconsistency, incongruity, oddity, enigma, conundrum, and even oxymoron came through. Whoa, right? These ideas and thoughts seem to literally turn the world upside down and inside out, and we carry on like we're completely in balance with how we experience and digest and connect with these mysteries of life. They do seem completely out of the realm of possibility at times, and that's why I think understanding them, embracing the power of the paradox and what they can do to serve us better in each of our moments, I think it's valuable and useful in our lives, especially in the context of managing the challenges in life, right? Especially our emotional health and mindfulness. Paradoxes may offer each of us a key to greater understanding because they often reflect the duality and complexity of the human experience. These paradoxes often have the capacity to point to a deeper truth upon closer reflection. And often that deeper truth shows up when we are not able to accept it. Life's challenges are often best managed not by forceful action, but by acceptance, slowing down and opening up to the present moment. The paradox may reflect the understanding that life's solutions aren't always linear, and sometimes doing the opposite of what we expect, what our instincts tell us, like pausing or slowing down when we feel rushed. These can unlock new perspectives and deeper emotional health, and hence a superior way to show up in our world. And it may sometimes feel like the ingrained patterns are so powerful that it makes the paradox more absurd and even more difficult to ascribe to. Paradoxes and counterintuitive insights are common when it comes to our emotions and our mental health and our emotional intelligence, their impact on mindfulness, how we deal with grief, and how we manage our fears, and perhaps how we even manage the joy in our lives. The exploration of the paradox was exciting. And this exploration revealed that what feels instinctual, the old way of doing things, so to speak, here, isn't always what leads to the most growth or peace or the greatest resolution or any resolution at all, if we're paying attention. When I say that a paradox often reveals a deeper truth upon closer reflection, I mean that what initially appears contradictory or illogical holds a hidden insight when we take the time to really think and reflect. Paradoxes challenge our usual ways of thinking. That's why this episode was challenging to produce. And while they might seem impossible at first, they often uncover a truth that isn't immediately obvious to any of us. And this deeper truth becomes clear through experience and introspection, and of course, a level of curiosity to be open to the potential a seemingly absurd approach may have for us. Reflection on these paradoxes often reveals that success, well being, learning, and growth, and evolution and transformation into our most authentic selves come from approaches that seem counterintuitive at first, but ultimately offer profound insights into how we can live better and more mindfully. And I have wondered how some of the instinctual habits are formed when they often prove to be ineffectual in their capacity to produce positive results in our lives. And of course, that sense of wonder leads me to many questions, and we ask ourselves a few of these questions here as we mindfully drop into this very moment, a moment of stillness, perhaps, as we ask, are there scenarios and responses that only appear to serve us well, even when the situation does not turn out so well or for how we had hoped it would turn out? Do we go into some mode of conservation that we convince ourselves that what we have done to make things better in a reactive state was best for us? And maybe we just have outgrown some of the ways that we've approached the world around us, right? Are we even aware that we are caught up in these patterns that may have helped a different version of ourselves at a different time for different reasons? What I'm trying to ask is why? Why have these instinctual ideas and concepts hung on or stuck around in our lives and in our minds and maybe even in our hearts? And why have we resisted the counterintuitive insight? Simply because it doesn't fit into our mindset? Perhaps we might imagine that for no other reason than maybe these were the best ways we could have handled the situation with the current state of our emotional capacity. And so were we able to be taught the lesson that we needed to learn? And maybe that's why that lesson passed us by and the ineffective approach sort of stuck around. I'm not so sure why. I'm so curious as to why these carry on, but surely they have served some purpose at some point in time. And I'd like to embrace the notion that we come across challenges in life for a reason. The challenge is often a lesson in disguise, and the lesson is often the reason we have faced our challenges. And it is with this spirit, perhaps we begin to open up and get very curious. And I think we can have a little fun and open our minds and our hearts in a compassionate way here, people, for ourselves and for each other, and be aggressively less harsh on ourselves. And we can open up as we conjure up our thoughts about being aware of these concepts and just how the level of awareness that is often needed to help navigate them will help us on our journey to a new perspective that may serve us better. And it's important here to not judge the version of you that once employed some of these ways in a time when we believed we were doing the best we could with the tools and the capacity we had to manage our lives. So let's get into the heart of some of these ideas and some thought-provoking paradoxes and insights that may resonate with our wonderful community of listeners. And as we often do, let's set ourselves up to be able to be still in this exact moment, right here, right now, as we settle our minds and harness our attention to this very moment in time. Perhaps a mindful deep breath here. Those powerful deep breaths, a few cycles of mindfully focused breathing while we learn about each concept here as we settle into this exact moment. And we'll handle these by outlining the general instinctive pattern, then get into the paradox and maybe a more mindful insight and a more mindful approach. And the instinct that we'll first talk about here, right? Our instincts tell us to block or repel or run from our pain. And these have been ways we have attempted to manage the pain in our hearts and in our minds for so long. And we're talking mostly about emotional pain here and the paradox, right? The acceptance of pain invites healing. And there's a beautiful quote from Rumi that helps us understand this. The wound is the place where the light enters you. And this speaks to the transformative power of embracing pain rather than resisting it. And as I speak about how the avoidance of our pain is sometimes what feels natural for us, we tend to see this tendency, all of these tendencies really, right? We see them more readily in others, in those around us. This resistance to the pain is something we see almost all the time in others, right? And we are often painfully unaware of how we experience and deal with and manage our own painful moments. So modern science and practical wisdom and even our very own anecdotal stories instruct us that we heal not by running from pain, but by accepting it. And perhaps worse here is that when we resist or deny our pain, it often intensifies. And Stoic philosophy teaches that pain is inevitable, right? How we react to that pain is what is within our control. The way we manage and deal with pain is what sometimes turns pain into suffering. Rather than resisting or fearing pain, we must be encouraged to accept it as a natural and necessary part of existence. And the Stoics, again, you'll hear this over and over from me. They emphasize focusing on what we control, our thoughts, reactions, and attitudes, while accepting external circumstances, including pain, with equanimity. That's the secret here, people. This approach helps cultivate inner resilience, leading to a more tranquil and fulfilled life, even in the face of adversity. Again, the more mindful insight here, whether it's grief, fear, or emotional wounds, embracing our pain with acceptance can begin the healing process. In fact, it may be the only way to begin to heal. And this marks the beginning of a beautiful journey to healing. And we must understand it will not instantly erase the pain when it is embraced, but we must understand that there cannot be healing without some level of acceptance. And earlier this year, I put together a mindfulness intention on healing, and I urge you to go back and listen. It was a beautiful episode. And mindfulness teaches us to sit with our discomfort, our pain, observe it, and let it pass rather than fighting it or resisting it. This is not easy, people. And depending on the level of pain and where it came from and how long it's been around and what may be conjured up, you may need professional help here. I urge you to seek out that help for some guidance, whether that's a psychologist, a counselor, a spiritual leader, someone with experience in assisting with the emotional wounds that may come up. These insights that I share are for how we manage and show up for ourselves so that we are better equipped as we heal and deal with our pain and struggles in our life. And I'll remind you once again, the mindfully stoic approach can be as simple as a reflective deep breath as we ask ourselves, what is in my control at this very moment that can help to propel me more mindfully into my next moment in time? And speaking of control, here next up on our imbalanced approach to life and the way we're trying to balance that and rebalance our lives is the instinct that so many of us so often employ. We try to hold on very tightly to control everything in our world. And what we're often blind to is that the more we try to control situations or our emotions, the less control we often exhibit and wield. Truly, the paradox here is that letting go of control allows us to gain control. And this one is difficult again here, people, right? Let's navigate slowly, mindfully, even. We somehow look to try to make sense of this thinking and approach. And I want you to think of the mindset that may propel us to believe what our instincts tell us, right? Why we instinctually go right down the path of trying to control everything. Perhaps it's a poor state of mind that we may be in when we need to pick ourselves up and carry ourselves out of a challenging situation. And this is what may prime us to be ready to employ the seemingly simple approach. In this case, trying to grasp a level of control that is not within our reach. And so let's get reflective with this insight. Oftentimes, right, loosening our grip on how things should be allows us to respond with greater clarity, flexibility, and of course, wisdom. And so the challenge becomes this. We often instinctively look to be able to have greater control when there is a greater amount of uncertainty. And this instills some level of fear, and our reaction is to hold on even tighter to a control that was never really there in the first place. And there's going to be a lot of integrated insights here, this fear, this control, the uncertainty. You're going to hear these come up as these paradoxes are outlined as we go on. They're all related. I broke them down a little bit separately to better understand them. We have often offered a pretty effective antidote to this. And yes, again, it comes in the form of mindfulness, that stoic question, that deliberate inquiry for ourselves. And perhaps you recall this question we have asked on this show before. You just heard it, a question that can help to ground us in a loving way. As we take another mindful deep breath in and release with a slow and controlled deep breath out, we ask ourselves once again, what am I able to control in my world right now to make my next moment a more mindful one? There is a reason why you are hearing this again. Your podcast player did not skip back to 2 minutes ago. I am telling you this right here, right now, that it is a powerful way to manage our minds with what we are able to do and act upon in this very moment. A moment that serves us with the compassion we deserve to show up for ourselves, so that we can show up for all those we care for in our world. The magic here, people, is that we are reminded that we are in control of our breath, and that reflecting on only what we control, beginning with our breath, and often narrows our options down to very few other things, allows us to let go and move on in a more accepting and open way. Let go of the control to gain control, loosen the grip for a better handle on what we can do to serve our mindful approach to the challenge at hand. And next up, the paradox here is about fear, and our instincts and intuitive insights have us going down the wrong path, perhaps once again. When we think about those that are courageous and act bravely, do not experience any fear, really, that's the wrong way to look at this, right? And the most eloquent way that this is counterbalanced in our minds through the following statement: courage is not the absence of fear, but acting despite its presence. The contradiction here that we should be embracing is that fear and courage coexist. In fact, some might even postulate that you cannot have courage without any fear. And the more mindful insight is that fear is a natural emotion, people, often there trying to protect us. However, the lessons we find from being emotionally intelligent, sentient beings teaches that fear doesn't need to stop us or cripple our capacity to show up for who we need to be in all of the roles we play in life. Mindfulness can help us acknowledge fear, yet not let it dictate our decisions. And this level of awareness is what makes room for courage to emerge in the presence of fear, right alongside that fear. And you may even believe that fear gives us all the opportunity to act in courageous ways. What a beautiful way to look at that, right? And the next way that we sometimes think that may interfere with how we can better show up in our worlds is very related to the relationship between fear and courage that we just outlined. And it is that we often think being vulnerable makes us weak. But the counterintuitive insight we must embrace is that vulnerability is the source of true strength and connection. Right? The paradox is that in vulnerability lies strength. And the more mindful insight on this paradox, by being vulnerable, whether expressing our emotions or asking for help in a genuine way, we open ourselves to authentic connection and emotional growth. And it was Brené Brown, right, who famously has said, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen. And so if this involves some level of courage, surely we must infer that there is some fear to be overcome in being vulnerable. And I think the fear that lies in vulnerability is related to being seen in ways that we have never been seen before, maybe even ways we have never seen ourselves. And wow, right? I just love the interconnected approach to some of the insights going on right here, right now. A rawness to letting others into a world you may have tried to escape or have done a really good job to keep others away from in your life. That takes courage, and that is being vulnerable. And a word of caution here: the force that may be unleashed in forming a strong connection with becoming a bit more vulnerable is immensely powerful here, people. I'm sure you understand the immense pull of a connective spirit when you are in a vulnerable state. Make sure that you are connecting with the right people for the right reasons when this comes up. And next up on how we get things mixed up and sometimes backwards here in a world laden with paradoxes is how we relate a level of certainty in our lives that is soothing to us and helpful for us and necessary even to live a more tranquil life, right? Our instincts tell us that a peaceful existence comes from certainty and security, but true peace often only comes when we accept uncertainty. And our more mindful insight here: embracing uncertainty brings peace. Life's unpredictable nature can cause anxiety. We are creatures that long for stability and stabilizing forces in our lives. And when we don't get it, right, when life throws its obstacles at us that we don't expect, seemingly the most insurmountable ones all at once, sometimes we're primed to feel at the very least unsettled and at the very worst completely incapable of taking a breath beyond the calamity that we are faced with. However, our developing, mindfully managed approach to life encourages us to be present in the moment, accepting and, yes, even embracing that which we can't control, the uncertainty of the future. The great Stoic theme again here, people, is that we can only control our responses to all things in life. This paradoxically brings a sense of peace as we learn to live fully in the now without grasping for certainty, a certainty that almost certainly does not exist. And knowing the outcome, holding on to the outcome, holding on to the expectations we all have is very related to control, right? Which is why the way we handle this sounds very similar to how we handle control in our life. And we will break here and allow each of our beautiful listeners some time and space to reflect on these thoughts and insights, on the paradoxes that show up in our life. And we will bring you the conclusion of our two-part series on the counterinstinctual approaches that may help to serve us better when we are open and curious and looking to embrace an innovative and perhaps difficult to understand way of showing up in our life. I hope you enjoyed these and look forward to sharing more about helping others and how mindfulness shows up in this realm of paradoxes and how we often get the pace of our lives wrong in terms of accomplishments. And a grand finale on how we manage likely one of our most difficult emotions, grief, and the way we handle loss in our lives. You won't want to miss the conclusion of this two-part series. Thank you for joining us. Be present, be mindful as you reflect on novel approaches to your novel experiences in life. Right here, right now. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time, right here, right now.